Hi, I'm Chef Bonnie Friesen from Foster & Company Catering, and today I'm going to show you how to roast a whole duck from Fraser Valley Specialty Poultry. Cooking a whole roast duck is a beautiful alternative to roasting a chicken because it has great flavor, and once we harness all of the fat that's in the skin, it just leaves behind this beautiful, crispy, delicious skin. So the first step we're going to do with our duck is we just need to cut off all the excess fat. And that's something that's really great to save. Once you render it down, you can use it later. Duck fat is great for roasting potatoes or sauteing vegetables. It's a really beautiful fat to use. We're just gonna pull out the neck, the liver, and the kidneys out of here. And I'm gonna save those for later too, just because they're really delicious to render down. A little bit more excess fat here. So what we're gonna do today is I'm gonna boil this duck first. It's a bit of an unconventional method, alternative to just straight roasting it, but the boiling really helps to impart flavor in a really flavorful vegetable stock that we're gonna make. And it also just slowly brings the fat out of the skin. So it means that it just cuts our cooking time down, which is really awesome if you're short for time. So before I get it into our water, I'm just gonna score it, and that's gonna help bring that fat out. So I'm just going to do a few cross hatches into the skin. Just want to go through the fat here. You don't want to be cutting into the meat. It's just really gently. I'm just going to do a little bit on the legs as well. That fat really gets drawn out of the skin. Okay, so our duck is all scored. So I just have a pot ready to go on the stove top with some water in it. And I'm just gonna slowly drop our duck into the water and make sure it's totally covered and immersed. And then we're gonna bring it up to a boil. And as we're waiting for it to boil, I'm just gonna add in my vegetables and aromatics. So let's bring it over to the pot. Okay. So you want a pot just large enough to hold the duck. And it looks like I just need a little bit more water. Okay, so let's just top this up. Just till it's just immersed is perfect. And I'm just gonna turn this on to a high heat to bring it up to a boil. Perfect, okay. Let's cut our vegetables. Okay, so I have some carrots and celery already diced up, and I'm just gonna add a couple onions to that. Okay, let's add our vegetables into the pot. Go, nice, this is gonna be so delicious. Okay, and to our water, we're also just gonna add 2 bay leaves, some peppercorns, and a tablespoon of sea salt. Okay, and once this comes to a boil, we're just gonna lower the heat down to a simmer and simmer it for 45 minutes. So while we're waiting for our duck, I'm gonna get started on our side dish. Today I'm working with a delicata squash. Delicata squash is great because the skin is really delicate that you can actually just roast it whole. You don't have to worry about peeling and fidgeting around with all of that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna slice this into some thick rings. just gonna scoop the seeds out, and then we're gonna toss this with a really nice 5-spice, some honey, some sea salt, and olive oil. I just have my oven preheating at about 375 degrees. Okay, so here are my squash rings, and I'm just gonna drizzle it with some nice local honey. Honey is a great tool for caramelizing. A little bit of honey. I have a Chinese 5-spice. There's lots of nice aromatics. I'm gonna go quite heavy on the spices here. Nice. A little bit of extra black pepper. Sea salt and olive oil. And these are just gonna roast for 20 minutes or until tender. Give them a nice toss, mix them with all that goodness. Nice. I'm gonna serve the squash with some braised kale that I'm gonna braise with some shallots and apple cider vinegar. So I'm just gonna slice some shallot very thinly. Then I'm going to start a large pan on low heat, and we're just going to start to saute the shallots. Just going to heat up a little bit of olive oil. Add these shallots right into that pan. While I wait for those to cook out a bit, I'm just going to work with our kale. Just going to peel it off the stem. So our shallots are sauteing up nicely. Let's add the kale. I love that kale has become more of a mainstream vegetable to use. It's just a packed superfood. So I'm just tossing the kale in a bit of the olive oil with the shallot. We'll add a couple tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. Nice. Let's turn the heat up to a bit more of a medium high. And lastly, I'm just going to drizzle a little bit of honey. Just to balance out the acidity. And some sea salt. The acid and the sugar is really going to work here to just break down the toughness of the kale. Okay, our duck has been simmering for 45 minutes. I'm just going to take it out of the liquid and we're going to let it dry out on some paper towel on a platter for about 20 minutes. Okay. There we go. pat the skin dry with some paper towel. And then allowing it that time to really kind of air dry off is just gonna give it a crispier skin. So our duck has been just resting and air drying for about half an hour. You can see all the water starting to just bead right off that skin. So before we put it in, I'm just going to check on our squash, which should be done by now. Oh yeah. It's beautifully golden and caramelized. So we're just gonna let that rest on the side. So I'm just gonna raise the temperature up to 500 degrees. I'm gonna roast the duck on a roasting pan, just fit to catch all the drippings underneath for any fat that's kind of left in that skin. And we're just gonna roast it breast side up. Okay, so we're just gonna slide this in for 30 minutes and it should be good to go. Okay, so it's been 30 minutes. Let's check on our duck. Oh, it's just a perfect golden brown. That color is amazing. You look at that, that's just because of that high heat that we were searing the skin on, and just because we had boiled it and thinned out that skin, it just crisped up perfectly. So we're just going to cover this with some tin foil, just loosely, so it doesn't cool off too quickly. And we want to let this rest for 20 minutes. And that's just going to help seal in those juices. While the duck's resting, let's plate up our kale and squash dish. This kale smells so good. Oh yeah, this is just a perfect dish for the winter season. That apple cider vinegar and those shallots just smell amazing together. We're just gonna place that down there, and then I'm gonna layer on the squash. Okay, and so there is our perfect side dish to accompany our roast duck, and I think it's ready to slice into. Okay, so we just got a long slicing knife, and the first step is just to take off the wings. It's gonna make this carving really easy for ourselves. All those out of the way. Okay, so now we have our legs off, let's slice into the breast. You just want to cut at a bit of a 90-degree angle, just starting on the neck side. Duck breast is a lot thinner than something like turkey, so you just have to shave it quite thinly. Okay, so here we have our beautiful, crispy, whole roast duck, served alongside our delicata squash and braised kale. Thanks so much for joining me.